a comeback.
So let me ask you the question since we're on that topic now, Jack. How many fights do you reckon a fighter can lose before, Dana White's got to at least consider dropping him?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Because there's certain fighters that have gone on such longer losing streaks right now that are still in the UFC.
The only reason they have stayed in the UFC was because they had to have had some big name.
Yeah.
Or they were even higher than that, like a Hall of Famer. So
Yeah.
BJ Penn, Anderson Silva. I mean, Anderson Silva, after he lost to Chris Weidman twice?
Yeah, twice, yeah.
I believe...
First time by knockout, second time was because he broke his shin.
Exactly, yeah. That was a brutal one as well. That was horrific. He snapped his tibia in half, and it was just hanging there. But his last 7 fights in the UFC, he all lost. And I would say at least, I mean, if you're including the injury as a TKO, I would say at least just over half of his losses have been knockouts. You know, his recent fight before he was released from the UFC
was a knockout
by Uriah Hall. I believe that was the second round, I think, second or third round. So,
well, you're right. Yeah. So hold on. Since his loss to Weidman twice, he lost to Nick Diaz. Oh, Nick Diaz was no contest because of the weed issue.
Yeah, but I would still count that as it's still a loss. Let's be real.
He lost to Michael Bisping, obviously, afterwards. He lost to Daniel Cormier afterwards. And then he won, though, against Derek Bronson.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he lost to Israel Adesanya and to Cannonier and then to Hall. Yeah.
So I think it was like his last 7, he's lost 6. Something like that.
Yeah.
After losing to Chris Weidman, it was a horrible plummet from there, and he was a fucking world beater. Yeah. Absolute. He was going to be. He's already an all-time great anyway. But coming back to your question, is the ones that get to stick around and they've then got to beg you to like kind of leave the UFC are the ones that are continuing to lose brutally.
Yeah.
Despite having an incredible name and incredible kind of fame around them, just because they're an all-time great. You know, BJ Penn comes to mind as well. Yeah. That was horrible as well. He must have lost a similar. I think he lost a similar amount of fights, and Dana was just begging, please don't you. And I believe his last fight was against Ryan Hall.
Yeah, and he lost. He's on a 16-14. record right now, and his last fight, was to Clay Guida, which I think he lost via decision, and then Ryan Hall he lost in like the first round 2 minutes because it was like a rolling ankle lock, which is nasty because Ryan Hall's known as the back take king in the BJJ world.
Yeah, Ryan Hall. It's unfortunate for him, and this is quick aside, we won't talk about it much, but Ryan Hall actually had a fight booked against Dan Ige fairly soon. I believe it was this month, and it's actually been cancelled. Ryan Hall's been struggling to get a fight. Finally got one. Dan 50K Ige obliged. However, he's now dropped out. Ryan Hall's got another injury. I don't know how the fuck he keeps on injuring himself, but he's now out of a fight again, and he hasn't fought in a considerable amount of time. Dan Ige will most likely get a replacement, but it is unfortunate. Yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. And another one that comes to mind, I know I won't touch on it too much, but last week, Michael Johnson losing to Clay Guida, he's lost his last 4, and it's not looking good. It's really not looking good. I mean, for someone that came into the UFC with a decent UFC record, beat Dustin Poirier, beat Tony Ferguson, and has an absolute fucking decline.
Yeah.
And it's really weird to see someone who is his hands are so fast. And he has very good defensive wrestling and stopping the takedown. However, it just seemed like.
But when he was at Ferguson and that Dustin Poirier, we beat them, he was peaked at the time, you would say.
Yeah, he's a bit older now. I think he's probably about 34, 35, something like that. And perhaps he's starting to fall out of his prime a little bit. And maybe the motivation's not there. You know, if you're not continuing to move towards fighting a title, the motivation might not be there. That's what I found really interesting about Frankie Edgar, because Frankie Edgar fought for a title at lightweight, featherweight, and then he was looking, as he had a bit more of a harsher cut to bantamweight. That was what was driving him to fight for a belt. I believe, if these people can't look towards fighting for a belt in the future, the motivation just declines. And I think the same thing is going with Michael Johnson, losing that many times, and it truly is unfortunate because he, it wasn't that long ago he was a top 5. I think around top 5, top 6 UFC lightweight. I think around when he lost to Gaethje, I think that must have been taking punishment from Justin Gaethje. Could have the damage he had in that fight could have dropped him, because we all know Gaethje, he's got dynamite in his hands. Yeah.